Your muscles may already be disappearing, not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, steadily, year by year. Beginning sometime around your 50th birthday, the body starts losing something it cannot easily get back: muscle. And the terrifying part? Most people don't realize it until it's already gone, until the stairs feel steeper than they used to, until the grocery bags feel heavier, until getting up from a chair takes a moment of gathering that it never used to require, until a stumble becomes a fall, and a fall becomes something that changes everything. After 50, the body begins losing muscle every single year. Not a little, meaningfully, the kind of loss that compounds over time, that reshapes how you move, how you feel, how much independence you have 10 and 20 years from now. And here is where things get surprising. Millions of people are drinking bone broth to stop this process. They've seen the videos, they've read the articles, they've bought the bags and the jars and the powder packets. Bone broth for collagen, for joints, for muscle loss. But scientists have discovered a shocking problem with this approach. It may not be enough. Stay with me, because what you are about to learn could change how you eat, how you train, and how strong you are for the rest of your life. First, let's understand what we're actually fighting, because if you don't know your enemy, you cannot defeat it. The condition is called sarcopenia, and it may be the most dangerous silent process happening in the body of almost every aging adult, and the least talked about. Sarcopenia. From the Greek, it means poverty of flesh. It is the progressive, age-related loss of skeletal muscle mass and function. Not disease-related, not injury-related, simply the biological consequence of time and of how that time is lived. It begins earlier than most people imagine. Research shows measurable muscle loss can start as early as the mid-30s, but it accelerates sharply after 50. By 60, the average person may have lost a significant portion of the muscle they had at 30. By 70, for those who haven't actively fought back, the losses become functionally serious.
Think of muscle as the engine of the body, not just for lifting and running, but for metabolism, for blood sugar regulation, for hormone balance, for immune function, for bone density, for the body's ability to recover from illness or injury. Every pound of muscle is metabolically active. Every pound of muscle lost is a reduction in the body's capacity to function.
And the consequences are not abstract. Sarcopenia is one of the strongest predictors of falls in older adults. Falls that lead to fractures. Fractures that for people in their 70s and 80s carry mortality rates that most people would find alarming. It is directly linked to loss of independence, the inability to live alone, to care for oneself, to move through the world on one's own terms. People describe it as feeling older on the inside than they ever expected. The fatigue that comes not from a hard day, but from tasks that once felt effortless. The weakening grip that makes jars difficult to open, the slowing walk, the worsening balance, the physical erosion of a life that used to feel capable. This is not inevitable. That is the most important sentence in this entire video. But it requires understanding what actually builds and preserves muscle and what doesn't. Let's talk about bone broth, because this is where millions of people have been given incomplete information and where the consequences of that gap are real. Bone broth is nutritious. Let's be clear about that. It contains minerals, amino acids, and compounds that have genuine value for gut health, joint comfort, and overall nourishment. This is not a takedown of bone broth as food, but as a strategy for fighting sarcopenia, for actually building and preserving muscle tissue in aging adults. Bone broth has a significant limitation. It is not a complete, high-quality protein source. Here is the biology. Muscle is built through a process called muscle protein synthesis, the rate at which your body assembles new muscle protein to replace, repair, and add to existing tissue. For this process to run at full speed, it requires specific amino acids, particularly one called leucine, sometimes called the anabolic trigger. Leucine is the primary signal that tells the body's muscle-building machinery to activate. Without sufficient leucine, muscle protein synthesis remains suppressed, regardless of how much protein is consumed in total. Bone broth is rich in collagen-derived amino acids, glycine, proline, hydroxyproline. These have their own value, but they are not leucine. Collagen is an incomplete protein. It lacks several essential amino acids in the quantities needed to maximally stimulate muscle building. This changes everything.
Your muscles need more than collagen alone, and relying primarily on bone broth as your protein strategy after 50 may be giving you the feeling of doing something and while the sarcopenia quietly continues. So what food actually helps aging muscles rebuild?
Let's go through them, starting with 5 and building toward the one that the science most consistently points to as the real driver of muscle preservation and growth. Number 5, Greek yogurt and kefir. If you are looking for a food that is high in protein, rich in leucine, easy to digest, and evidence-backed for muscle support in older adults, Greek yogurt belongs in your daily routine. The protein in Greek yogurt and kefir comes primarily from whey and casein, dairy proteins that have some of the highest biological values of any food protein. Whey in particular is rapidly absorbed, highly leucine-dense, and has been studied extensively for its ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. For older adults, this matters more than most people realize. Research has found that dairy protein consumption is associated with better maintenance of muscle mass and physical performance in middle-aged and older adults, not marginally, meaningfully. And the benefits extend beyond muscle. The live cultures in Greek yogurt and kefir support gut health, the microbiome that influences everything from inflammation to immune function to nutrient absorption. A gut that absorbs protein efficiently is a body that uses protein effectively. For someone fighting sarcopenia, these are not separate concerns. A cup of Greek yogurt in the morning, kefir with your evening meal. Small, consistent habits that deliver real building material to muscles that are asking for it every single day. Number 4, eggs. If protein sources were ranked by how completely they deliver what muscle tissue needs, eggs would consistently appear at or near the very top. The egg contains every essential amino acid in proportions that are remarkably well matched to human muscle tissue. Researchers have used the egg as the reference standard against which other proteins are compared. It is, in a very real biological sense, the template.
2 eggs at breakfast deliver roughly 12 to 14 grams of high-quality complete protein. Combined with the fat, the vitamins, B12, choline, vitamin D, and the extraordinary bioavailability of the amino acids, eggs provide something that muscle protein synthesis requires. Not just protein, but complete usable protein delivered efficiently.
Eggs are tiny biological repair kits, packaged by nature with almost everything the body needs to rebuild. And after 50, when the body's ability to stimulate muscle building from protein, a phenomenon researchers call anabolic resistance, begins to decline, the quality of the protein you eat matters as much as the quantity. Whole eggs, with their full amino acid profile and nutrient density, are one of the most efficient ways to overcome that resistance. Scrambled, poached, boiled, however you eat them every day. Your muscles are waiting for the materials. Number 3, fish and marine protein. There is a reason that cultures with the highest rates of longevity and physical function into old age tend to eat fish consistently. Not as an occasional meal, as a staple.
Fish delivers high-quality complete protein, leucine-rich, easily absorbed, and paired with something that almost no other protein source provides in significant amounts, omega-3 fatty acids.
EPA and DHA, The long-chain omega-3 fats found primarily in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines have a direct relationship with muscle. Research has shown that omega-3 supplementation can enhance the muscle protein synthesis response to amino acids, meaning the same amount of protein generates a stronger anabolic signal when omega-3 levels are adequate. For older adults with anabolic resistance, this is a meaningful advantage. Omega-3s also powerfully reduce chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation is one of the most destructive forces working against muscle preservation in aging adults. When inflammation is high, the body's muscle breakdown pathways are more active. Muscle is lost faster. Rebuilding is harder. Reducing inflammation is not just a cardiovascular strategy, it is a muscle preservation strategy. Salmon twice a week, a can of sardines.
Fish skin, which various culinary traditions have long prized and which contains concentrated collagen peptides alongside high-quality protein. These are not complicated additions. They are additions your muscles and your longevity will thank you for. Number 2, lean meat and the habit that doubles its power. Chicken breast, lean beef, turkey. These are the dietary staples that most people associate with muscle building, and for good reason. They are dense, complete, leucine-rich proteins that directly support muscle protein synthesis when consumed in adequate amounts.
But here is what makes number 2 different from everything else on this list. Protein alone is not enough. This is the most important and most frequently missed piece of the entire muscle preservation puzzle. You can eat perfect protein at every meal, and if your muscles are not receiving the signal to grow, they won't. That signal is resistance exercise. When you challenge a muscle through lifting, through pushing, through any form of resistance that asks the muscle to work near its capacity, you activate specific molecular pathways, particularly one called mTOR, that tell the body to build more muscle tissue. These pathways are the doors that protein walks through. Without resistance exercise, those doors are largely closed. After 50, older adults often experience what researchers call anabolic resistance, a reduced sensitivity to the muscle-building effects of both protein and exercise.
The threshold is higher. More protein is needed per meal to reach the leucine threshold that triggers synthesis. More stimulus is required to activate the growth pathways.
This is why research increasingly suggests that older adults need more protein than the basic recommended daily allowance, not less. Studies indicate that older adults preserving or rebuilding muscle may benefit from protein intake significantly above the standard guidelines, spread across multiple meals throughout the day. Lean meat, eaten consistently, combined with consistent resistance training, not necessarily heavy lifting, not necessarily a gym, but some form of challenge to the muscles several times per week, is the combination that works. Strength is not just about appearance, it is about survival, about the ability to live independently, to move freely, to recover from illness, to remain in the world on your own terms. That is what number 2, done consistently, protects. And now, number 1. The answer that surprises people, because it isn't a single food. Let me build to it properly. For decades, the conversation around muscle and aging focused on individual foods. What's the best protein? Which supplement works best? Which single dietary change makes the biggest difference? And what researchers kept discovering, across study after study, in populations around the world, in people in their 60s and 70s and even 80s who had successfully maintained or rebuilt significant muscle mass, was that the answer was never one thing. It was a combination, a system, a daily pattern of inputs that, working together, produced results that no single food could achieve alone. The number one strategy for killing sarcopenia and rebuilding muscle after 50 is this: consistent, distributed, high leucine protein intake from high-quality sources including whey, eggs, fish, and dairy, spread across multiple meals throughout the day, combined with regular resistance exercise and adequate sleep.
Here's why distribution matters so profoundly.
Muscle protein synthesis is not a continuous process, it is a pulse, triggered by the arrival of leucine at the threshold required to activate the anabolic machinery, and then sustained for a limited window before the response refractory period begins. Eating all your protein in one meal does not deliver the same benefit as spreading that same protein across 3 or 4 meals, each containing enough leucine to trigger a separate synthesis pulse. 25 to 40 grams of high-quality protein per meal, hitting the leucine threshold at each eating occasion, appears to be what research points to for older adults who want to maximize their muscle-building response. Whey protein reaches that threshold efficiently. So do eggs, fish, Greek yogurt, lean meat. These are not exclusive options. They are interchangeable tools in the same strategy. The goal is quality, consistency, and distribution.
Sleep is the third pillar. During deep sleep, growth hormone surges, the primary hormonal signal for overnight muscle repair and rebuilding. People who sleep poorly, who sleep fewer than 7 hours, who have fragmented or non-restorative sleep, show meaningfully blunted muscle protein synthesis even when protein intake is adequate. Sleep is not rest from the muscle building process. Sleep is when the muscle building process peaks.
Eat well, train with resistance, sleep deeply, repeat. That is the number one strategy. Not a miracle food, a system, a daily commitment to the inputs that aging muscle requires. And now let's talk about what is working against you, because understanding the destroyers is as important as understanding the builders. The first is inactivity. Muscles disappear fastest when the body stops moving. Bed rest, sedentary living, spending the majority of waking hours seated, these accelerate sarcopenia at a rate that diet alone cannot compensate for. Muscles respond to demand. Remove the demand, and they receive the signal to shrink. Consistent movement, walking, resistance exercise, even standing and light activity throughout the day sends the opposite signal. Use it, keep it, build it.
The second is ultra-processed food. Highly processed foods high in refined carbohydrates and vegetable oils drive chronic inflammation and insulin resistance, two of the most powerful biological forces working against muscle preservation. Inflammation activates muscle breakdown pathways. Insulin resistance means the anabolic response to protein and exercise is blunted. Every meal built around ultra-processed products is a meal that works against the muscle you're trying to keep.
The third is poor sleep. We've touched on this, but it deserves emphasis as a destroyer in its own right. Poor sleep reduces growth hormone output, increases cortisol, raises inflammatory markers, and impairs the overnight muscle repair that is supposed to happen every single night. People who consistently sleep poorly lose muscle faster and rebuild it more slowly than those who sleep well. This is not a minor variable. It may be the most underestimated factor in the entire sarcopenia equation. Inactivity, ultra-processed food, poor sleep. These three, working together, can overwhelm even good protein intake. Removing them is not optional for anyone serious about preserving their strength. I want to end with something I believe with conviction. Aging does not automatically mean weakness. I have seen the research.
I have seen what happens to bodies that receive the right inputs consistently, and I can tell you the decline that most people accept as inevitable is not as inevitable as they think. Muscle can be rebuilt at almost any age. The research on resistance training and protein in people in their 70s and 80s shows results that would surprise you. Strength returning, mobility improving, balance recovering, independence extending.
The body is not finished, not after 50, not after 60, not after 70. Given the right signals, the right food, the right challenge, the right rest, it will respond. Every meal with adequate protein is a message to your muscles. Every session of resistance training is a signal for growth. Every night of deep sleep is a window for rebuilding. Your muscles are listening to every meal, every movement, every choice. Strength can be rebuilt. Independence can be protected. The version of you that moves freely, lives fully, and remains capable for decades to come, that version is not behind you. It is being created right now. By what you eat after this video ends, by whether you move your body today, by whether you protect your sleep tonight. The future of your mobility is being written in the habits of this moment. Write it well. If this changed how you think about muscle and aging, please subscribe. We publish research-backed longevity science every single week, and what's coming will go even deeper into how the body rebuilds. Tell me in the comments, do you currently do any resistance training? And what's the hardest part of getting enough protein each day? I want to know, and your answer will shape what we cover next. Next week, we are going to talk about the one hormone that may be the most powerful signal for muscle preservation in aging adults, that declines sharply after 50, and that most people have never thought to address. The research is extraordinary. I will see you then.